Everyone does not grieve the same way because we come at grief and we come at that situation differently. Our age, our relationship with the person that has died, our hopes and dreams with that person.
You always wish you had more time, whether your child lives 1 minute or 100 years. You're always going to wish you had that extra day with someone.
Yeah.
In our case, extra minute. I would have loved an extra minute with them.
You're not going to get over losing a child because we're not supposed to lose our child.
Her being here and then her being gone was really quick. You grieve these moments that you'll never have with her. She'll never go to prom. You won't walk her down the aisle.
Speaking of parental loss of a child, it's a very devastating and life-altering trajectory of your life. No one believes that your child will die before you do. Your hopes and your aspirations for that child also change because they're no longer there.
Children never deserve to die. Losing a child has to be the hardest thing for anybody to go through. Here's this little being that you brought into the world, that you have loved and taken care of, and now this little being isn't there. And so you've got an incredibly huge pain that will take time, but it can happen.
Name is John Medford.
My name is Tani Carr Medford from Los Angeles, California. Ooh, Summer was a bright light. They called her the mayor because she never met a stranger and she was always part of the welcoming committee wherever she was a social butterfly. When everyone was like, who's her best friend? They were like, I am.
She just liked being around her friends. She loved playing. She liked the outdoors. She loved the beach. Oh, beach was her second home.
Just perfect. She was a perfect child. So shortly after her 10th birthday, she caught a fever. We went to Children's Hospital and they were like, we're admitting her. We had to test almost everything. Summer was diagnosed with SJIA, which is systemic juvenile idiopathic arthritis, which makes it an autoimmune disorder.
Our whole thing was, how do we fix it? What's the next steps? I want her to have a normal life again.
When he asked me to marry him, it was the easiest yes I've ever said. You know, there was no question. When he asked me, I knew.
I always wanted to have a big family. I wrote an essay back in high school. I wanted to have, not kidding, 10 kids. It was something that I was always really called to.
For me growing up, I always said that people would say, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a mom, but I don't think I understood at the time what that meant. I just knew that he would be an amazing dad. So when it came to getting pregnant, we were nervous. I think I wanted to start sooner than he did. And he was like, we said 6 months, let's enjoy this time. We're not going to get this back, which is so true. We started trying and we got pregnant on the second, month 2. So Mike proposed to me in an escape room. We love escape rooms. I knew that whenever we did get pregnant, that I wanted to surprise him in an escape room.
But it seems I underestimated you. Checkmate.
I think at the 12-week mark, they did a ultrasound. There was just little things that they caught, such as his growth was a little bit behind, and there's something called an omphalocele, which means that the stomach organ's are actually growing outside of the body. Tracy got blood work done. It was like a 9 to 10 day wait to get the results, and I've never prayed so hard in my life. The test came back positive for trisomy 18. They let us know that the outcome is typically not compatible with life, which was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It was very difficult news. The one thing that never wavered is whether or not we would continue with the pregnancy. As long as he showed up for us, we would show up for him. So,
We had no idea if he was going to survive or not. It doesn't take away the fear of what's going to happen.
I just wanted to share some of the photos I answered. So this first photo is of me going to my doctor's appointment to get my blood drawn.
Around 13, they were like, oh, she's not growing out of it. I wish it was me. I was like, why can't I be sick? Why does she have to be sick? Let me be sick. I can do this.
To just see her in the hospital bed and I can't do nothing but just being by her side was tough as a dad.
At the end of her freshman year in high school, she just had a flare and then she had a heart attack, like right in my arms. We were able to resuscitate her and they put her on life support. Of course, I was in denial. She's on life support, so as far as I'm concerned, she's still alive. That evening, her other organs started to fail, and it was clear. And then she's gone. When we first lost Summer, it was really hard and heavy, and it was hard to sleep. Everything was doom and gloom. COVID, I hate COVID. COVID was horrible, but COVID also changed the way you bury someone. So it was really difficult. We waited a year so that anybody and everybody could show up.
When everything happened, I knew that it would be an outpouring like that because she poured out. It's hard. Really miss her. She was an amazing kid. When she passed, we had so many flowers at that house. It was crazy. A lot of the things that she was doing outside of school, so many plaques came to the house.
I see her classmates, like I was dropping Winter off at school and one of her classmates had to let me over. And it's like, oh, he's driving, how great. And it's like, oh, wow, he's driving. Summer's never gonna drive. It's bittersweet, bittersweet.
I felt some more pain, more than usual. At the time, I just thought, oh, another pain. I'm always in pain. And I didn't realize that there was something stronger that was happening. And then Monday morning, my water broke. And this was 3 months early.
I was all but convinced that he would not have a heartbeat. I had thought he had passed away.
We got to the hospital and
then when she was laying there, we could hear his heart.
The nurse went in with me to the bathroom because I had to change out of my clothes into a gown. There was a lot of blood.
Our doctor came in and saw the situation. He says, this is urgent. There's a lot of bleeding. We need to do a C-section.
Yeah, and it was the scariest moment of my life because it was an emergency situation. We weren't prepared for it emotionally or mentally. There was this amazing nurse there who could just tell how scared I was, and she held on to me and hugged me while they gave me the epidural, which was not comfortable. And she just held me so close, and I'm just so grateful for her each and every day because I was so scared.
They notified me that his lungs were severely underdeveloped. There's not much we can do other than comfort care, and if he is born with a heartbeat, he'll be here for a very short time. At that point, I just held her hand and we just prayed. I think I just kept saying Hail Mary over and over.
Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden he was there. He had a heartbeat.
He was really small. He was really small. He had this perfect little nose. It was Tracy's nose. And she actually has one nostril slightly bigger than the other, and he did as well.
That's what I asked. I said, he has my nose. I said, is one nostril bigger than the other? And Mike looked and he said, yes. And I was like, which one? And he said it was the same one. And so we just got to lay there with him. You know, the doctors were so incredible. I mean, it went by so fast, the 48 minutes.
But of course, there was a deep sadness. And even though we knew and we anticipated this, you still can't quite prepare for it.
Yeah.
But my goodness, like, the amount of love I had for that little boy in those 48 minutes would last a million lifetimes.
There's a part of me that's, you know, struggling right now. You know, I told Mike, I said, you know, I'm a mom, but I don't have a baby. You know, you can't just go back to right before you had a baby and you're, you know, saying, okay, our lives are about to change, so let's enjoy life as it is right now.
Yeah.
Because our lives have already changed. I spent so much of the pregnancy scared out of my mind that I forgot to enjoy the pregnancy because I was so scared of what things may look like. The next time we're gonna celebrate no matter what happens, and we're gonna make sure he's a part of every single moment of it.
I often wonder, what does it really mean to be strong? Because people would be like, oh, you're so strong. And I would be like, am I really? Or do I have a choice? Like, I kind of feel like I didn't have a choice. But I often wonder, what would it be like if I wasn't strong? What would that look like?
As a father, you know, you see your daughter and you want to see her grow up and go to school and go to college, all the dreams that she had herself. Walking her down the aisle and having grandkids. To not be able to see how her life was gonna end up is just hard to swallow.
To see how she touched everybody else's lives, I was like, I think we have an angel. And then you start feeling like, okay, God he took his angels. He allowed us to have her for a minute. She's returned to her maker in love.
To realize that what we had planned, the tablecloth has been pulled out from under this beautifully set table. All the crystal and the china are on the floor in shattered pieces. How do I take those pieces and make a mosaic table out of them? It is hard when we encounter something that we really never thought was going to happen. For us as Christians and Catholics, Mary offers that opportunity, that person who understands what it's like to lose the person she loved most in the world. Mary can be an incredible comfort to people who have lost a child.
He's watching over his mom and dad. That gives us a lot of comfort.
Some people are blessed to have come to peace, especially as they're dying. That's been the biggest challenge to think of all of this, is that I didn't have the TV moment of, you know, I love you, Dad, I love you, Mom. My brother fought to the bitter end.
My last interaction with my brother hadn't been the most positive. I wish we could have had even more quality time together over the last few years.